Oh my gosh, all I gotta say is wow. Okay, in this interview, I have Trevor Williams. This dude, literally, he's in tears, I'm in tears, we're all in tears. I'm just gonna say the amount of power this story has brought him to where he is today. He is a world traveler from starting the age of 4, going in different places in Africa where during war-torn times, as well going to Haiti and being at Haiti while that 2010 earthquake that devastated the land, killing 300,000 people. This is Trevor Williams, who experienced that before the age of 20. And it is crazy to see what that has brought him today, what happened with his family, and even more so with him being a firefighter for the city of LA County, as well as being an entrepreneur, developing tools to help people get access in and out, just different types of structures and doors without having to cause so much damage. So it's really cool to see where he's been, how he's handled that, and what he has respect and time for in this age. So I'm so excited to get into this interview. This is Trevor Williams. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the show, Trevor, man. I'm so excited to have you on. It's always nice to see a brother in a different department doing some awesome things and thinking outside the box, which I know you do a lot of. So I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today, and I'm excited to dig in your story.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so some of the things that I saw, and I know we alluded to a little of this right before we started the show, was, man, you traveled a lot. And I know you kind of went in with me before we even started this, and I love hearing all that. But I wanted to kind of at least give some background to who exactly Trevor Williams is. I know it's very diverse. You've been a lot of places, from missionary work to, like, as a kid where your parents were taking you to different places that were insane stuff going on at the time. Places that, man, I would feel scared right now to bring my kids. But at the same time, I am like so pumped to hear that story in and of itself. But could you just give us a little picture of what life was like for you specifically growing up in different countries, visiting different areas, and give a little bit of background of like what that even looked like?
Sure. Yeah. So where to start? So I was born in Virginia, and pretty soon after, I was about 4 years old, my family felt called to be missionaries. I was the firstborn, only child at that point. I now have 2 little sisters, but when I was 4, we moved to Africa, Zaire. It is called Democratic Republic of Congo now. Zaire went through a war and a change of name. And so we were there doing emergency relief work through World Vision, one of the largest nonprofit organizations. They're worldwide, and they do a whole bunch of different things.
And you moved there when you were 4 years old?
4, yes.
4, okay. And then I guess if I can ask real quick, what drove your family to want to be a part of an organization like World Vision and go to these areas where there was a whole bunch of turmoil going on at the same time? And has that bled into your life at all?
Yes.
Loaded question, yeah. I know. Very loaded.
Or a multi-part answer, I guess.
Yeah.
Say. So my parents are Christians, and so am I. And that's how they raised me. So my dad was a lawyer before this, actually, and huge change.
Oh.
So as a Christian, you seek God out in your daily life, and you pray, and you're constantly seeking direction and what God's calling is for your life. So yeah, when I was 4, they felt called to go to Africa specifically, and they followed that calling. It took a huge leap of faith to take a young child, firstborn, into a very dangerous country during a war. But they trusted God, and we're okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, first of all, like just on that topic, man, like it's very easy in America to call yourself a Christian and not get hurt, not get challenged, not get, defamed in any way, by it. But for someone to, I'd say, go to a level to where they, I'd say seek God out daily into a position where they're bringing you and your family out to a whole other country like that, that is, I'd say that's on a whole, that alone I would love to unpack, but like that's on a whole nother level. That kind of stuff right there is awesome.
Yeah. And it wasn't taken well, by the friends and family at the time. Thought they were nuts, and that's why would you take a young child to like that? And they're like listening to God, not our friends and family. So.
Wow.
So yeah, it was challenged for sure.
Gosh, man. Yeah. So what was it like from your perspective, being 4 years old, being in Africa? Because I know you went from Zaire. Is that what it was called before? Zaire. Yeah, Zaire, then to South Africa, then back to now the Republic of Congo, or Democratic of Congo. Yeah.
The mouthful. So my perspective as a 4-year-old, I still remember a lot of it pretty vividly. Nothing like here. A lot of poverty. Where we lived in Lubumbashi, Zaire, which is more of a city. I know when people think of Africa, they might think of a jungle.
Yeah.
It's such a big continent. Like, it has a lot to offer. There's beaches, there's Egypt, there's sand, there's jungles. So we lived in a city, but it was poor. So dirt roads and stray dogs, crime, military kind of roaming the streets, and a lot of old diesel trucks driving around.
Yeah.
I was mostly not afraid, like my parents led me to believe that I was safe and stuff, at least for a little bit. But there was nights when we could hear gunfire and bullets would land on the roof, like a tin roof, So that's scary. There's a time where we were ambushed coming into our house. Our house was surrounded by walls with barbed wire, and we had a guard. And our guard didn't have a gun. He was mostly to open the gate for us. And I think he had a slingshot, but it wasn't like heavy duty protection. He's just kind of.
You say a slingshot?
Yeah, a slingshot.
Was that like a legitimate sling, like that will hurt somebody kind of thing?
Yeah, he actually shot somebody who was trying to climb over the wall one time.
Wow.
I think that guy lived. I think it was more of a deterrent.
Yeah.
But you'd hunt with it, kill little birds and rats. And stuff.
There you go.
But yeah, we did get ambushed coming home one night where 4 guys, when the gate was open, 4 guys ran in with weapons and rope and tools and stuff to kind of probably do some harm to us and break into our house. And who knows
Yeah.
What, but
what happened?
So we didn't see them. It was nighttime. We didn't see them come in. They came in like behind us.
Yeah.
And I guess they told our guard, like, don't say anything, we'll kill you. But he did. He started yelling and he got our attention. And my dad was driving. He put the car in reverse and floored it out of there. And I remember my mom holding my head down to stay low in case they shot at us. And he was just kind of blindly like flooring it in reverse. And we got out on the street and just started going down the street. And we went to a friend's house that night and stayed the night. And our gate was open. Our guard was like, who knows what happened to him?
Yeah.
It was scary. And they did kind of run out of the gate after our car, but no gun. I don't think there was any gunfire, but we went to our friend's house, spent the night, and the next morning went back and see like, was our guard still alive? Like, had our house been broken into? There's bars on all the windows at the house. So, there's some security, but they could get in if they tried hard enough.
Yeah.
But we went back and it didn't appear that they had made access to the house, and our guard was still alive. He he ran and hid in the bushes. They couldn't find him.
Wow.
So he got a raise. And
dude, what a story, man. Like, I mean, there's two parts. One, like, how often does that happen? Like, I mean, it probably happens a lot, right, in different countries and in other areas. And I'm sure, as you know, as a 911, responder, if you will, like, you see more things happen often than not. But at the same time, like, personally, when you think of the average individual living in America, it's just so unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, at least in our world. And not only that, but too, on your guard. Dude, what a boss. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Great. I actually haven't told that story in a really long time. I almost forget about it sometimes. And I don't think I've ever mentioned that he hit somebody with a slingshot one time. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that since it happened, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just triggered that little memory in my head.
So I'm glad. I mean, I think sometimes it takes some of these, or just like specific questions, right, that jog up different things within our mind, and I think being able to extract that, because there's so many little lessons that we kind of forget about along the way. Like, we can talk about the general overall bird's eye view of a story, but it's often the deeper little stories that happen within that overall arch, if you will, or that bird's eye view, that I feel like come with a lot of, I don't know, interesting. That's interesting, that has power, that has a life lesson. I mean, I think, and I feel like for your story, I wish we had more time than just the amount of time that we do have, because I feel like there's a lot, probably a lot of little stories along the way, just from, the places you've been, as well as the experiences you've experienced, not with a traditional childhood alone, right? So you went to South Africa as well. How long were you there during that ordeal?
We were there about a year. We let Zaire cool off. I don't know if you remember the Rwanda genocides or seeing Rwanda the movie. That bordered Zaire. We have friends from there. My parents told me, at least, that like people would come to them and like, can you hold my wedding ring for me? I don't know if I'm safe with it, and I'll come back and get it if I make it. Stuff like that. So it was a really hot zone at the time. And we went to South Africa to kind of get away from that.
Oh.
We were there for a year, found this out after getting our house in South Africa, but the family before us had been slaughtered in their home. So it was a dangerous area as well. So we had little panic button necklaces.
Yeah.
Which is like, what's that going to do if you're at gunpoint? But it was supposed to be like a quick 911 or whatever they have over there to call emergency. But that was our like sense of security. So we stayed a lot. Me and my mom stayed home a lot. My dad was still doing World Vision work.
Oh.
I remember it being a little bit more America feel, like bigger city,
South Africa,
a little bit more money and less rule, but still a lot of gangs in South Africa. So not a lot of people know that, but it can be pretty dangerous too. So we're there for a year, and then tried to go back to Zaire after there was like an overthrowing and everything, and then it had changed its name to Democratic Republic of Congo. We got back there, and it was just too much. So we ended up going back to America for a little bit. And I did some school. I did public school, private school, homeschool, depending on where I was at the time. A lot of it was homeschool because we thought every time we moved, it would just be like for a few months or maybe a year or something pretty quick. So homeschooled in Connecticut. That was the next place we moved to.
Wow.
When I was 12, we moved to Haiti.
So I know you were in Haiti for a while. You're a little older at that point. And 12. That was what, 2002, 2000, somewhere on there?
That sounds right. Yep.
Okay. So you spent, and how many years did you spend in Haiti?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. And then you moved to the States.
And then back to the States, California. So first time being in California when we moved there, but the same deal. Haiti was violent, a little civil war going on there. President got overthrown, civil unrest, lots of burning tires and gunfire, violence. And so decided to cool off in California.
Wow.
As a headquarters in Monrovia.
Yeah. I passed by that headquarters quite often when I was, I think just out of high school. And I was, man, like, I really want to do some volunteer work with them as well. And I'm thinking in my mind now, like, wow, that's pretty in depth and the type of volunteer work you could do on a personal, like in-person level. So, but real quick, in regards to, so you spent some time back and forth traveling a lot as a kid is what it seems. When you came back to Southern California, your parents, they went back to Haiti for a little while. And what year was that?
This was 2009. The end of
2009. Okay. And then you wanted to stay to kind of pursue firefighting and kind of build a career here and kind of get yourself established, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
At that kind of found my calling growing up doing emergency relief work and helping people get fall in with firefighting. We do emergency work and we help people.
Yeah. It's like dives right in. So, man, there is so many things unpacked. So just from that whole history and in regards to that, what kind of things did you bring from, say, your lessons, if any, that you feel you wouldn't have done normally in your fire career today?
Ooh. So, and we haven't gotten to the biggest impact in my life that happened in Haiti. I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but
no, not yet.
But something happened to me in Haiti that impacted the whole rest of my life to this day.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
I'm into it.
I'll share all the core values that are ingrained in me from that experience. So this happened in 2010, early 2010. I was living in California, but I went to visit my family in Haiti, and I hadn't been back in 5 years. So, and they had just been there like a few months at this point. So it was cool to go visit them. So I applied to Haiti, spending time with my family. And I'd done some like fire explorers and fire training, and I just got my EMT. So I was looking for a way to kind of volunteer and use my skills. So I set an interview with the United Nations in Haiti, and they had like, they're gonna like do a 1 month internship with a new fire program that they were setting up. So they were gonna utilize me and the skills that I had learned on a basic level to help teach people with no fire knowledge how to use basic equipment and do a little bit of fire protection. So that was my goal, get a little bit of resume builder and go back to Haiti, see my family, see my old friends, and be there for a month.
Yeah.
On January 12th, 2010, there was a major earthquake that occurred. And this was the largest natural disaster in modern history. It killed almost 300,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Haiti had like 7 million people. So that's a huge percentage of people living there. It wiped out 1 million people were left homeless and another million were left injured. So I don't know, maybe 2 out of 5 people were majorly impacted.
So you were there during that incident.
So I was there on that day. I was separated from my family before the earthquake. I went to an orphanage to help out. I was on the 2nd floor of an orphanage. There's 110 kids at this specific orphanage. And when the earthquake hit, I'd never, even living in California, I had never experienced anything even like remotely close to what I experienced in Haiti. And at first, I didn't even know it was an earthquake. It sounded like there's a convoy of like giant Big Mac trucks just like barreling down the road. And everything shake. And it created a bunch of dust too. And so this earthquake went on for 39 seconds, and it was a 7.0 earthquake, and it was very like shallow to the ground. The infrastructure is poor in Haiti. There's a lot of unreinforced concrete buildings.
Yeah.
So after like 10 seconds, it got really scary. After 10 seconds, it felt like a train was like crashing into our building, and the whole thing was shaking. And there's buildings around us coming down. I was on the second floor of this orphanage, so I had like a little bit of a vantage point. At that point, I knew it was an earthquake. All the kids on the second floor are special needs kids, so none of them can like get up and walk. And
shoot.
I was out on the balcony of this building, like holding onto the railing, waiting to see what was going to happen. And yeah, so 39 seconds, which seemed like an eternity. It seemed like a super long time. It was loud and dusty and scary. And then it stopped momentarily. The building I was in did not collapse. Very, very fortunate, because a lot of buildings did. There's cracks.
Jesus.
So the next move, like my firefighter, I wasn't hired yet, but I'd been training as a firefighter.
Yeah.
And all started kicking in, and I was like, all right, we got to get everybody out of the house, because I knew aftershocks were going to start coming soon. Mm-hmm. And all the houses in Haiti, at least a lot of them, are surrounded by a big gate or big walls. And the wall in the back of the property had collapsed on the eating area where all the kids eat. And they had just been eating there, but they weren't there at that time. That would have really done some damage to the kids if they had still been there. So we got all the kids out. We sat them on the ground out as much as we could out of any collapse zones. And then we just waited. And aftershocks started to hit, but they were like 5.0 aftershocks. So those were bringing down more buildings and more buildings and more buildings. And that earthquake occurred at I think it was just before 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So still light out when it happened, but starting to get dark. And my dad was at his office. My mom and my two sisters had just gotten home from school, so they were at the house, and then I was at this orphanage. So we were all like spread out.
How old were your sisters?
At the time, 12 and I think 5, I want to say. Okay. Yeah. We're all 7 years apart, so I don't know if I did that math right, but I think 12, and I was like 19 at the time. Yeah. So I just waited. I was like, I can't go. I don't have a car. All the streets are collapsed.
Yeah.
I guess I can do the best good right now, just helping with these kids. And I waited until 10 p.m. Oh, and all the cell phone towers went down. None of the cell phones worked. There's like lost communication. But I waited until 10 and my dad showed up. And he just had this look of like, he had a look I hadn't seen before on his face. And he's like, Trevor, I need to talk to you. Okay. And he said, he went back to the house, where my mom and sisters were, and it had completely collapsed, and there's no survivors in the house. He said he couldn't find my mom and sisters. So I was like, okay, I didn't know what to think at first. That's like devastating news potentially, right?
Yeah.
And I will share they're okay, but they were in the collapse, and then this is a 5-story building, and the street level is the 3rd floor, and it kind of hangs off the side of a mountain. And they live on the bottom floor, so they had just gotten home from school. They were all together talking, which usually you split up when you get home, but they were all together in the same spot when the earthquake started and it just started pancaking down from top to bottom, and the wall broke open where they were standing, and they jumped out, rolled down the mountain, and spent the night in a tree. My mom was barefoot. My youngest sister was barefoot. The 12-year-old had shoes, and she fared the best. Like, they all got scraped up and stuff, but they all lived. And my mom, at the time, let's see, she was I think in her 40s, mid to late 40s. And then my youngest sister, who was 5, got a bunch of rubble in her eyes and couldn't really see, and she was barefoot and stuff. So looting started right away, and rape, and it's just like a really dangerous country for like 3 women to be out alone without any protection. So they climbed up in a tree and spent the night up there. And the next day, my dad's office is nearby the house. So the next day they got a ride to the office, and me and my dad spent the night at the pastor's house up higher up in the mountains. And we had, like, neither of us could sleep. There's aftershocks going on the whole night. I'm trying to, like, believe that my family is still alive, or maybe one of them, you know, and thinking that we couldn't go start digging that night. It was taking hours to go anywhere because everything was collapsed into the street. So you're basically off-roading over all this rubble to get anywhere. And there's bodies everywhere too. So you're, like, not wanting to drive over that. So me and my dad get to the office the same time that my mom and sisters are arriving at the office. And yeah, it's most powerful day that I can remember, thinking I went from losing them to getting them all back. And that's something that resonates with me very, very strongly. I think about almost every day. So we just held each other and cried. And my mom and sisters, they were covered in, like, debris and bloody. And my oldest sister was helping my mom kind of, like, limp in. And the littlest one, you know, she, like, couldn't see. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful that everybody survived, and that we were so fortunate, you know, because not everybody did. So we needed to get them some attention, some medical. We made our way to the U.S. Embassy to get them evacuated out. And so the Air Force was starting to come in and gather people to get brought to the U.S. So they were able to get my mom and my sisters and my dad on the plane to go bring him back to the U.S. And I decided to stay in Haiti for the next few weeks to help out. Everybody told me I was crazy, that a big tsunami was coming because of the earthquake, and it was going to wipe out Haiti, and that all the prisons had broken open and all the worst people were loose and wanting to hurt people. And I was like, no, my golden ticket is staying here. Nobody's going to be able to fly in and help right now. The airport was damaged, so it was really hard for planes to land. All commercial flights were canceled. And I had training. To help people. I just gotten my EMT, just passed my national registry. So I stayed. And after my family got to safety and got on it was a U.S. Air Force plane, I started trying to help. So initially I went to World Vision, and because I knew people there, and they're like a helping organization. So I helped them distribute food, and that turned out being really dangerous because everybody was desperate for food, and it would create riots.
Yeah.
So show up with a truckload of food and supplies, and it would just get ransacked. And that was scary. So we tried that twice, and then decided we couldn't even do it. It was just getting too dangerous. So I ended up joining up with a search and rescue team after that. And I saw it. So LA County Fire has an international search and rescue team called Task Force 2. I saw them come down, and I was wearing, actually, I lost everything that I had in the apartment collapse, and I only had the shirt on my back. And it was a LA County Fire Station 32 shirt and an LA County hat. And Task Force 2 comes down, and I'm like, hey guys, like, I'm Trevor. I'm an explorer. I help. And like, where the heck did this guy come from? And I was like, no, I know the language and the country a little bit, and I think I could, really be a valuable asset. And they told me, no, sorry, kid, go kick rocks. Like, FEMA and USAID are, are governing entities, and you got to go through them. So I get it. Or at the time I was upset, but I understand it now because eventually I got on that team.
Wow.
But I joined up with a private search and rescue team, and they had like a cadaver dog, a pilot, Army Ranger, Navy SEAL, a medic, commander, and they had just like assembled their own little tactical search team.
Those are the best, by the way.
They were motivated, and I got to work with them for a couple of days, and we weren't getting anybody alive.
Yeah.
We're bodies out, but nobody viable. Task Force 2, however, got a lot, actually. I think they got like maybe 11 saves. I could be wrong with those numbers, but they were pulling people out alive, doing really, and they had all the equipment and support.
Where was their focus to go towards individuals who were alive? Did they just know, okay, these are the areas where there's going to be the most likely of voids, where like maybe the 5-story buildings or something like that? But I mean, was there like information that they had like that, or that they were following? Or
are you asking about County's team or the team I was on?
County's team.
Okay, so County's, their intel is really good, and they do recon, and they split up, and they're dropping vantage points and GPSing everything. They're doing like initial searches. Yeah. So, and also word of mouth. People were like, yeah, there's a confirmed like live rescue here. We can hear them. We last heard them an hour ago or whatnot. The team I was on was like not as technical at all. And we were just going word of mouth. Like, hey, there's a guy trapped in here, help, can you help us and stuff? So yeah, that was the difference. The big, our team was a lot smaller, but it was good exposure. And then now, I got to participate with Task Force 2 and go through all the training for that. And that was kind of my first big career goal once getting hired on with County.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. I also worked with a helicopter team. That was probably the most fun. We had 3 helicopters, and we'd load them up with all this food that was pouring into the airport. Yeah. And drop it all over the country. And that would eliminate the riots, or at least not put us in danger. So we'd hover, throw a bunch of canned food and bags of beans out, and then take off. And I would say by far the most effective distribution going on in Haiti at the time. So that was fun. Just nonstop, helicopter, loading up, loading and going. And then we would fly to the Dominican Republic at night and sleep there on a baseball field, which was safe. It was removed like disaster. We had the people that I met, I kind of talked my way into working with the team. The people in charge, they were wealthy and privately owned helicopters. And they hired security to watch us at night, and we'd sleep there and feel safe. And then in the morning, fly the helicopters back to Haiti and do it again. Wow.
How far of a helicopter flight was that from Haiti to Dominican Republic?
Like 30 minutes. Okay. Yeah, it's not too far.
Dude, I don't think I've ever spent so much time in the investment portion of like how you came to be or how someone came to be than on this call. And I am so appreciative of it, because I have to say, not a whole lot of people can draw from such an experience. One of starting off with traveling all over the place and serving, at different capacities while countries were going to war with itself, and not even just like the whole Sudan, situation of, then going to Zahira. I keep saying that wrong. I don't know, because I'm not used to the name. But then also to be in a situation where, going through Haiti's earthquake. I mean, everyone heard of that. The whole world heard of that, but it's not only that of to be in that population but really it's like to not be from there and have that go. And especially, dude, I'm trying not to cry, and I can just kind of see what you're going through, just like the kind of where your mind goes when you're thinking, holy crap, like my whole world just got turned upside down. I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. And to go through that for a whole entire night, like that is, woo, I'm getting choked up right now just because very similar too, right? I had a brother who I lost, and I had, and it was very much the same thing. We had no idea where he was, and he ended up being involved in a car accident, and, same deal. His car went over, not same deal, but his car went over the overpass after someone hit him from the backside. And the whole night we were wondering, we had no idea where he was. So I can only imagine the kind of thoughts that you would have gone through waiting to hear about your mom and your sisters, Oh.
And once I started getting choked up, it's hard for me to talk. So I was trying to fight my brain a little bit.
Dude, I get it.
It was really emotional, and I was trying to be strong for myself and my dad. And my dad was pretty convinced that they were gone.
Yeah.
And the point where he started talking about funeral plans.
Wow.
That the morning that we were going to go back and dig them out. And that's kind of when I lost it. I hadn't cried yet or anything. And I was trying not to. I was trying to have hope. And I had to get up, and I walked. We were up in the mountains at the pastor's house, and the sun was just starting to come up. And I walked out on the balcony to kind of like compose myself a little bit. And I hadn't seen Haiti in the daylight yet. And especially not from a mountain view. Like
you can see everything.
Yeah, where you can see everything.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most vivid memories in my head. Sun coming up, fires everywhere, and rubble and smoke and debris in the air still, and you could just hear wailing. Like you could hear people all throughout the city just crying. And that was the most emotional. It wasn't the most emotional part of that day, but finding my family was. But I do remember that very vividly. Trying to be strong for my family.
Wow. Shoot, man. Gosh, I just told you I mean, when you tell that story, does it just derail the conversation?
Yeah, it definitely can. So
yeah,
you up right now. No.
Yeah, dude, it's just powerful. And I think if anything, it reminds you of what's important and reminds you of what really is important, right? Because like I feel like a lot of times we'll get in such of a position where we're just digging and driving and we're following the rat race, or we're just, hustling towards our dreams, if you will, but not really realizing what is so important, like what's right in front of you that's so important, that the reason why you're doing all these things, or essentially what makes all those things worth it. And I mean, even we got about 15 minutes, but even within that time, like, okay, so one, I want to know, man, how does that pour in your life today? Not just the fire service, but how does that pour in your everyday life? That's question number one. And two, dude, you're doing a lot. Like, you're not afraid of doing new things. I think that has a lot to do with how you're, brought up. But like, you got right behind you, Williams Key. How did that start? What was that all about? And I know you're definitely an entrepreneur at heart in regards to what you're doing within the fire space. But can you just tell us a little bit about that, what that looks like, and how those values of the last, man, your first 20 years of life kind of brought you to where you are today?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. First question.
First question was the value part of like what did you look from Haiti and from the first 20 years of your life? How has that brought in the values, knowing that story, into the fire service and into just your life in general? So not just the fire service, but I guess your overall life and what you do.
Yeah. So I think a big one was like just being very appreciative of life and of family, and wanting, like, knowing how privileged I am, because a lot of Americans and people in first world countries, we're all in a bubble, and we don't realize how bad it is in a lot of the rest of the world. So it's very humbling and eye-opening when you go to places like Haiti and Africa to realize like how good we have it. And so just being appreciative of that, and knowing that I have an opportunity that not everybody does, and not wasting it, being growing up in these tough countries, and then being on my own early on, like pretty much at 18, I always had to hustle, and I had to have a drive. So that got me into just doing whatever I could to like be an entrepreneur and make a little bit of extra money, because California is tough. It's tough to pay the bills, especially if you're out here on your own without support. So I got into construction before I got on the job, and I was able to learn a lot of really useful skills. I did doors, I did carpentry for commercial jobs, and every day I showed up at work as a construction worker. In my head, I was a firefighter, and I'd lay out my extension cord the way I'd lay out a hose lay, and I'd throw it at explorers, and building construction and learning roof construction, and learning tools, and I use those skills every single day. So anybody out there that is young and looking for a start to a career, I would pick up a trade, because that follows good. The way the Williams key came about. It's the tool opening doors without doing damage. It moves the strike of a lock out of the way, and you basically slip the lock, and you're able to open the door. This one works good for outward swinging doors. We have some other products that work good for inward swinging doors, and then we also have the folding version, which guys like to keep in their turnouts.
Oh yeah.
Fighter or police, and then we have a lot of government agencies that like to carry these as well. So this came about from my knowledge of doors and installing doors and knowing how locks work, and then getting on the job as a firefighter on a truck company doing inside work. Like one of the jobs they like to put me at was, I'm the guy that gets you in. So whether that's using the Halligan forcible entry tool, or rotary saw, or kicking the door down, or whatever it may be, my job was get everybody in and then soften the structure, which means open all the windows, open all the other doors, and
throwing some ladders.
Throwing ladders and stuff. So I had started making tools for myself that were just my own personal private tools for getting in, and I had my little wizard bag I would take with me, and I was known as being pretty good at getting into stuff. So eventually people asked me to make them some tools. So, and it's not just like, I can just make them quick. It's like work and it takes time. So I decided to have a small batch of Williams keys made. And I got it for my guys at the station. They all loved it. And then we get a lot of overtimers and guys from other stations coming through our station, because 8s is pretty big. Yeah. We have 39 guys there. So word got around, and like very quickly, people wanted to start paying for this tool I had made. So I had to figure out what I was going to do with that.
Wow.
Request. And it just grew exponentially. I started getting fabricators and started doing, I've always been pretty good at marketing and making logos and t-shirts. And I did about a year of sales for Google before getting on the job as well. So I was able to learn about how businesses work really, really well. And graphic design. My wife does graphic design too, so she helps me with whatever I need if I can't figure it out.
How'd you meet your wife? I'm curious about that.
Cool. We had a music class together, and we didn't get together initially, but about 5 years later, our paths crossed again. And
yeah,
been married since 2008, and we just had our first kid about 5 weeks ago, a little girl.
Oh, amazing! Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is amazing.
But yeah, Williams Keys done great. We're about to hit 10,000 sales of keys, and a lot of new products dropping. People come to the website now with a shopping cart, and they load up. They get hats, t-shirts, stickers.
Wow.
Keys. We've got a giant Magnum Williams key for big gates, and a whole lot of other little stuff. So I just came a product last week for accessing the buddy breather on an SCBA.
I saw that, the ripcord one.
Called the ripcord. Don't have any up here with me. I have a sticker though.
There you go. I like it.
And it's a glow in the dark pyramid shaped textile thing that hooks up to your buddy breather, and you can feel it with a gloved hand, which is always the issue when you're trying to. And tested it on some of these new VAs coming out, and it's even harder to access your buddy breather now. So
what's the new VA that you guys getting? Scott or? I'm
not sure if I'm allowed to say.
That's okay. We won't go there.
That's what it appears that we're going to.
Yeah. So dang, I remember my short time, I was only on for about 5 years with San Diego, but that was one of the biggest things is even though the time that you're able to use them is very slim, right? But when you're going to want to use it is going to be a life or death situation typically, right? So it's like, you want to make sure you have that. And I remember guys, we'd always even put like bigger rings or something just to grab onto it because it was always harder to feel. And you have to kind of find those buttons. Well, we had Scott's, so trying to find those buttons to, rip and then pull out your stuff, is always definitely a challenge if you weren't doing it all the time.
Yeah. And, I bet you could ask half the guys, they won't even know what side their buddy breather's on. Because if you don't train on it, you don't even think about it.
That's right.
That you're pulling it out. It is life and death. Seconds. You're out of air.
Exactly. Literally.
Out of it. So the ripcord not only opens the pouch, but it deploys your buddy breather and the wipe.
Wow.
You have the wipe in your hand ready to go. And then
that's awesome. I'm assuming it's on your right side because my memory just went to the right. I'm like wondering it was probably there. I'm assuming it was. It's been a couple of years now, but dude, that's amazing. So question, with the Williams key and your tools, do you ever do partnerships with like teams that are going out, like, for different catastrophic events like in Haiti?
Yeah, we actually sent some Williams keys to Ukraine.
Dude.
So there's a team that went out of firefighters, and they took Williams keys with them.
Dude, come on, man.
So
that is so cool. That is probably one of the coolest stories I've heard, and I feel like it's just going to be a continuation of just growth and development. Like, oh man, I love this story, man. This is pretty wicked, really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's moving fast, so I'm just trying to keep up with it.
I love it. So 3 things I always ask, each guest on the show is, 1, what is the one habit that you would deem that would allow or that like brought you to be successful in your industry? Number 2 is, what's a favorite book or podcast that you've listened to or watched or read this year? And the third question is, how do people get a hold of you? How do they buy your product?
Okay. First question, a habit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
it's never going to be the perfect time for whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So you got to just take a risk and go for it. My perspective with success is you don't know what's going to make you successful, but you got to keep getting on the horse. You got to keep throwing your darts and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And I had no idea the Williams key was going to like be what it is. People recognize me, like strangers recognize me. And like, I know it was going to get to that point. And there's other stuff I'm working on too for the next podcast we do.
I dig it.
Yeah, I think that would be a big one. Have a high risk tolerance. Don't be dumb, but take risk. And especially if you're under 40, you can take a little bit more risk, because you have time to recover.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Favorite book? The Bible.
Go, baby. Which book in the Bible?
James. I like James. James 1:2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds.
Yeah.
That the testing of your faith develops perseverance. So that's kind of been a life verse for me. That we get tested and we become stronger for it.
Yeah.
God never gives us anything that He doesn't think we can handle. And then, what was the last question?
Last question was, how do people get a hold of you and buy your product?
So the way you can get a hold of me and the Williams key, we're on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok. Never thought TikTok would be such a big thing. It took some convincing to get me on there, but now several multi-million view videos on there. And then if you want to order, the website is the best place. We have a lot of distributors too, but williamskey.com is a good place to find our whole arsenal of tools and apparel.
Love it. I'm definitely going to go on there myself. I'll say that right now. Awesome. Trevor, thank you so much for being on the show. This was definitely an interview to remember, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Would love to be back in where this takes you, and thank you again.